So here it is, my take on Pokémon Violet for the Nintendo Switch. Let's talk about it. Now before I delve into anything Pokemon related, I just wanted to say a huge apology for my absence of nearly 2 months. I made a community post going in detail of my departure, but I still wanted to mention this in my most recent video. So for those of you who stayed subscribed to my channel, thank you guys for basically staying in the long run and placing your faith in me. Now, without further ado, let's begin with my personal thoughts on this Nintendo Switch game, Pokémon Violet. This'll be fun. I think it's important for me to basically talk a little bit about my background with the Pokémon franchise before I start talking about the game specifically. So, the first Pokémon game that I have ever played before was Pokémon X on my 3DS. I was a massive 3DS kid growing up, and I had a physical copy of all 3 mainline Pokemon games released on that console. Pokemon X, I also decided to choose Pokemon Alpha Sapphire, which was a remake for one of the older games, and then of course I chose Pokemon Sun. I didn't buy Ultimate Sun or Ultimate Moon because, I don't know, to me they just seemed like the same game just slapped on with extra details. But that's also where my involvement of the Pokemon franchise started to go downhill. I mean, to this day, I've still never completed Pokemon Sun. It wasn't a bad game by any means. I still find some joys by playing it. But, I don't know. I guess what really steered me away from completion was just the simplicity of it all. You catch Pokemon, you beat the gyms, you beat the Elite Four, that's it. Nothing more. And then that's where Pokemon Violet stepped in. When I played this game, it was a relief to see that you literally have unlimited freedom to roam around any part of Paldea as you so desire. Paldea is the region this game is taking place in, by the way. And that's another thing. See, when I was playing through the game, I had no clue that there was a specific order the gym battles were supposed to be completed in. I just ran around challenging whichever gym I saw first, which led me to being severely underleveled in some gyms while being able to demolish others. And that was another thing that I had to mention, the story. Now, when you're playing a Pokemon game, 90% of the time, you aren't playing it for the story. So the fact that this story was just there for most of the game wasn't that big of a deal, at least for me. Victory Road was basically just beating all the gyms, talking to the Elite Four members after each battle, and Nemona challenging you to a battle every time you complete 2 to 3 gyms. That's basically it. Starfield Street was probably my least favorite plot line. I'm sorry, I just wasn't a fan. You defeat the 5 base captains and they basically give you the same spiel every time, and now they went from being bullied at the academy to being the bullies to others. The best path of the 3, I would have to say, is the Path of Legends, but even then, it fell to the same faults of having the same rinse and repeat issue. Each time you defeated a Titan, Arven would just help feed his dying Pokemon a sandwich with a special herb in order to restore its power, while Miraidon always ended up stealing our fair share in order to unlock more of its abilities. Again, it wasn't that great, but I still really like seeing my motorbike Pokemon being able to power up, and the little hints of Arven's backstory that was sprinkled in here and there was nice. But I'm going to continue on Arven later on this video. One thing I will give credit to this game for doing is having a very balanced selection of starter Pokemon. In my personal opinion, I like the design of all 3 of them, which I didn't really feel that way for any of the starters minus Gen 1. And if you're wondering which of the trio I ultimately chose to be my first ever Pokemon in this game, it was Prigatito. The final evolutions of all 3 of these Pokemon had the same Leaf motif. They were all kind of performers. Once reaching that level and where they evolved to their max evolution, they all get a powerful attack that has correlation to singing or performing. Skeledirge has Torch Song, Meowscarada has Flower Trick, and then there's this one. No hate if you pick Claxley. On the same coin of different Pokemon in this game, now there's the main mascot of the whole thing, Koraidon and Miraidon. Now, of course, since I played through Pokemon Violet, Miraidon was the Pokemon I was accompanied by throughout the whole game. However, I really do feel like both of them are evenly matched. Personal bias, however, I still have to say I prefer Miraidon, just because of the fact that it's a literal motorbike half the time. Also, I just really like the whole futuristic aesthetic of this Pokemon that it has and emits. I know the story also alters very slightly as well depending on the route you take, where Violet focuses more on the future aspect, whereas Scarlet focuses more on telling tales of the past. And I wanted to come back to Arven later because there was one pretty massive difference that I was unaware of until just recently. The Pokemon Professor in your chosen game changes depending on your version. If you're a Violet player such as myself, you'll be in contact with Professor Turo, who is Arven's father. And if you're a Scarlet player, you'll be in contact with Arven's mother, Professor Sada. And so here we come to the biggest highlight of the game, at least for me. Away Home. Away Home is the fourth and final chapter of the game that unlocks once you've completed Victory Road, Path of Legends, and Starfell Street, in which you and your group of friends, Nemona, Arven, and Penny, the Eevee backpack-wearing kid who was secretly the one who formed Team Star, ride your chosen legendary Pokemon and fulfill the Professor's last and final wish. I freaking loved the Area Zero story. It unlocks an area with really tough Pokemon, which is good for base game level grinding, and the story itself was really enticing. When we found out at the very end that the Professor was an AI this whole time, I honestly never saw that one coming. Cassiopeia as Penny, wasn't that big of a shock, but goddamn was this one. Arven was definitely the most written character of your friend bunch. Penny is just a small nerdy kid, while Nemona is just looking to pick a fight with everyone. With the AI Professor being Arven's father or mother, it really adds on to the complexity of his character as a whole. I remember when I first started this game, I saw him as a really annoying character, but now I actually really grew to enjoy him. And come on, the Miraidon versus Miraidon fight at the very end of the game was so epic. When all of your other Pokemon were locked from being used in battle, and so you had to call upon the frightened legendary Pokemon for one last battle to save you and your friends, it was definitely an ending worthwhile. Also, as a PS, Toby Fox was the one who composed that final battle soundtrack, which you can really hear it. In my opinion, it sounds a lot like Death by Glamour from a certain other game. So, if I'm praising this game so much, why did it receive such a low score of 2.9 stars? Well, I think some of the issues I mentioned before were probably at the pinnacle of reasons to blame. The slow and repeating story early on was definitely a drag before Area Zero, and one of the most major issues was the lag. In some areas with a lot of people, Pokemon, or big bright buildings, you will get a massive lag spike, which is not something I would expect from a game on a high-end console like the Nintendo Switch. With all that being said, I think it's about time I answered the question I asked in this video. Was this game really that bad? Personally, I don't think so. Yeah, it had its issues, and it was quite a bit away from what somebody could consider be a perfect game, but there was a lot to enjoy in this game as well. The high quality, the freedom, and the basic thrills like catching every Pokemon in the game, defeating every challenger and gym. Those are certain little excitements that will never subside out of a Pokemon game. If I was the one giving this game a fair and honest rating, I would give it somewhere in the 3.9 as a low and a 4.3 for a high. Again, this was my personal opinion, so if you don't agree, I'd love to hear your opinions in the comment section down below. This was my first ever time doing a video game review, and while it's over 2 years old, it was still a really pleasant experience and an unforgettable journey, which are moments I live for when it comes to playing a video game. I hope you all enjoyed this rant and honest opinions video on Pokemon Violet. And I'm Fern, and I'll see you all in my next video. See ya.